So it's not every day I get a treat this special. Some new, I don't know if you'd call it new old stock, but some very old pistons. Because I got a 47 Plymouth that is in need of some new pistons, well, a whole rebuild. And I just kind of wanted to go through the unboxing. I popped the seal on it already. That's no biggie, but just get a load of all this information about different vehicles. And to be fair, we know most of this stuff today. You know, nothing about this is particularly special. Do the job right, all that, loosen your clamps. This is a starter box that they were shipped in. But just, I'll get one of them out and open. Now, these are just the pistons, no rings or anything. Look at that. This thing very likely has been sitting probably in a box since the tail end of World War II. Well, actually, no, this is dated a 41 Dodge, so this has been sitting in a box longer than Hitler's been laying dead in the Führer bunker. Now, I'm not a Dodge expert by any means. I mostly deal with Fords and Internationals. Say what you will. So that part number doesn't mean anything to me, but just, you really got to appreciate how things were done. Now, the older among us, well, I shouldn't even say the older. You don't have to be old to be wise, but you don't have to be young to be stupid. Take that to heart. Those of us in the know will notice, yes, 4 piston rings, because I believe there were 2 oil control rings on this engine, as well as you see this interesting cutout in the 4th ring the 4th ring area. That is for thermal expansion. Now, I've been told this. I haven't had a chance to mic these up. Like I said, I just popped the seal on the package. That these pistons actually aren't round. They're egg-shaped. And with the way they thermally expand, it pops out here and becomes more round. I could certainly say, I don't know if it's coming through on camera, that section feels like it's popped out more. Look at the cast. I haven't seen cast aluminum that looks this decent in a while. And I work as a fucking machinist in this country. Oh, wait, there's some more numbers. I work as a machinist, and I've worked on everything from medical equipment to aerospace flight controls to, well, engines and automotive and agricultural equipment. I mean, my understanding is die casting didn't exist back then. But, like, obviously that's a machine line there. But look, that casting is smooth. Like, this looks die cast. Maybe somebody smarter than me will tell me, oh, no, they did die cast pistons back then. But, like, I'm trying to get the light on my monitor in here so you can see it. Look how smooth. This is the as-cast surface in here, this little triangle. And even the machining bore, for that pin, it's reflective. They got that down to such a good surface finish. Now, the face of the piston is nothing to write home about. That's kind of a shitty finish, to be perfectly honest, but not everybody in the world is going to geek out the way I geek out about old car parts and pistons, but just, this is something I wanted to upload, I don't know, for a bit of remembrance sake. If you would all indulge me, I'll give you all a little bit of a story. A rant, something you can put on to go to sleep. So, I don't know if this is true, so maybe I'm just completely talking out my ass. My understanding, though, is the United States has not been able to produce on the mass quantity scale we have produced since World War II. I look at these pistons and I look at the machine work and I go, you know what? This was done with rudimentary equipment. There was no CNC. There were no tape machines. This would have been all manual equipment. Now, I can't speak to how this was done. If, a smarter man than me would guess they didn't cut each one of these groove profiles individually on a lathe. They would have had a form tool with 4 inserts on there, come in all at once and do it in one pass and then maybe a finish pass to get it nice and clean. Like this bore wouldn't have been multiple drills. It probably would have been like a twin-headed Kaiser boring bar. So you go ahead, do one drill depth, or probably a three-headed because you've got this like excess counter bore here. But no, it's point being, look at the craftsmanship of what, if you know what these Dodge flathead engines were, they went in everything from cars to trucks to stationary generators to water pumps. This was the definition of just we need a rotating gasoline-powered engine. If a hospital needed a generator, boom, put a Dodge flathead in it. My 47 Plymouth needs to go down the road, boom, put a Dodge flathead in it. I need a military truck to transport 20,000 pounds. To tow 20,000 pounds, boom, put a Dodge flathead in it. And these were gutless motors. Don't get me wrong. They were gutless. I think the 230 was 95 horsepower, and I don't even remember what the 218 was. But, it would have been a little less. Let's say 90 horsepower. I'm sure somebody will correct me. I look at this, and I compare it to a lot of the modern parts we run. The as-cast surfaces, the machine surfaces, general fit and finish. And with the exception of the face of this piston being a little meh, it's better in almost every way. Now, I have to get it on a height stand to go ahead and confer that, every machining mark is within, tenths and microns. And you know what? Yes. On a lot of these older parts, sometimes they use their whole plus minus 3 or 5 thou or whatever it happened to be. And I can forgive that, given the technology available at the time. But how is it that we have these amazing giant CNC? I just left a shop in Wisconsin. And I can't give away a lot, but I left a shop in Wisconsin that made medical equipment. That's all I'm saying. Running some fantastic equipment, working for some good people. And I'll tell you right now, their raw extruded aluminum stock didn't look half as good as this as-cast surface in here. And don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, focus. There are pores and craters, but this box is marked for 1941, and these are allegedly 1941 Dodge pistons. For 1941, this is pretty darn good. And then I have to think about things like my 58 Edsel. It needed wheel cylinders. So I ordered some replacement wheel cylinders, and you wouldn't believe it, but the factory wheel cylinders were a beautifully tight grain pattern cast iron. They looked fantastic, and with the exception of a little bit of rust from the fact that there hadn't been brake fluid in it probably since before I was born, there was nothing wrong with them. And then you look at a new brake cylinder, and the casting is rough, and it's got that nasty, shitty, I don't want to say it, but the reality is, it's got that nasty, shitty, gritty Chinese metal smell, and to my fellow machinists out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that gritty Chinese metal smell. It's like oily, acidic. It's just a nasty smell. I worked another contract quite a few years ago in Wisconsin. And again, I won't tell you who it was, but we were making agricultural equipment. And I'll tell you right now, your Moog is not made in USA. They are not made in USA at all. We were getting shitloads of boxes of, what were they? I don't even remember what part it was exactly. It was some kind of articulating ball joint part, but it wasn't a ball joint. Point being is we were machining Moog parts, and they're all from China. Some of the roughest, shittiest castings, none of the edges deburred. I don't know if you've noticed this. I'm flipping this part around pretty haphazardly in my hand. And even these edges here, I hope the camera picks up, that was deburred. Human hands aren't really supposed to be messing around with this, and they deburred it. Even the piston ring grooves, if you look carefully, if the camera will focus, is deburred. And that was manually deburred. Those are edge breaks. Somebody would have had to have done that with a machine. Somebody really cared when they made this. And maybe they didn't care. Maybe their boss would just beat the shit out of them if they didn't. I said I swear. This video's not... Well, I don't get monetized anyway. This is more for the pleasure of the craft. I don't know. Any fellow machinists out there, look at older machined equipment, and you just kind of got to look at it and og and go, wow. Oh, see if I can get the focus on the inside. This is the technology that built America. I mean, heck, here's something, and you can look this up. I'm 99% sure this is true. So because these were made before World War II, assuming the date written on the box is correct, this is unirradiated aluminum. Now, at some point in U.S. history, and again, this is an offhanded rant. You're not going to get exact dates and times from me. But at some point in U.S. history, we started making, or after we dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we started making medical equipment, and we found that a lot of the medical equipment needed to be particularly sensitive, or this equipment needed to be particularly sensitive, and we were finding issues with the metal being irradiated from nuclear fallout, because the reality of it is, every breath we take, every move, every step, every breath, every blink, every time we swallow, there's a little bit of nuclear radiation in there. It's like dust in the air. You could put an air purifier in every room of your house, and there's always going to be just a little teeny tiny bit of it still there. But what we did because it was very difficult to remove the radiation from this metal, and basically all metals from that point onwards had it, we were harvesting wrecked ships at the bottom of the ocean because the ocean was such a dense layer that the radiation wasn't reaching this metal, or if it was reaching the metal, it was reaching it in much, much smaller amounts. And when the radiation when the radiation wouldn't reach this metal, it remained useful for things. I assume Geiger counters have to be made out of non-irradiated metal because, how could you have something measure radiation that has a little bit of radiation in it? So this just, it's a little rant. So this is probably, till it sat on a shelf somewhere and probably picked up a teeny tiny bit of radiation. I mean, if we're being technical about it, sunlight is radiation, heat is radiation. Radiation is just radiant energy. Now, whether that radiant energy kills you or not, or cooks your food, are two different things. But point being, one could argue this is a rare aluminum. They probably don't even make aluminum like this anymore. Now, my plans are to fully use these pistons in my 47. And due to the facts of life, I'm probably going to have to sell my 47. Decisions got to be made. And my kid comes before most of my cars. No, my kid comes before my cars. And besides, the wife and I agreed the 47 Plymouth is good, but we want to get our hands on a 48 Chrysler Windsor limousine. There's one not too far from us, but we don't have money. And that story's all this time. I want to do things, but I don't got money. Well, there's just a little rant. Look at some old piston technology that's, getting up there in 20 years. Not even 20. This is going to be getting pretty old soon, so. All right, y'all. Have a good one. This is just a late night rant about some pistons I ordered. Rock on.